no opinions.
Oh,
Maybe
okay.
you can test the volume, then you can try to.
Yeah, hello, we're testing. 1, 2, 3. We're seeing if this works. We are here to do a video.
It's better on this side.
Well, I started recording.
Yeah, that's okay. You know this one? It's a millipede.
Show it to everybody. Really. Look at that. Look at that.
So you can just do like this. This is the way it defends itself. It just goes.
Yeah. I don't want to step on it either.
No.
Yeah.
Can anybody tell me what's going on? Tell me what's going on. If you open your eyes, you'll see that something is wrong.
All right. Here we are for another exciting episode of Free to Speak. Well over 40 episodes now. Paul.
Yeah, sure. It's been a minute, yeah.
It's been a minute. It's been a wonderful long minute. Actually, it's been over a year. We started this.
Yeah.
Was it February of 2024? It was last year.
Yeah, February.
But it was February. So we've been doing this now for a year and 2 months.
Yeah,
and
I know we had a bit of a disappearing act at some point.
Yeah, but during that disappearing time, it was less frequent with our videos. We were still putting things out. And I went through the other day, last week, and I went back to the first episode.
Yeah.
And I listened to every episode back to back, just to see how they kind of flowed and evolved. And
You did that?
I did that, yes. I listened to every single episode back to back.
Okay.
Not all in one sitting. Like I'd sit down and listen maybe to the first 6, and the next day I'd come back and I'd do the next 6 or 7. And after a few days I got through all of them.
Okay.
And I was listening to them for continuity, to see how they flowed, and they actually flow very well.
Oh, it made sense. Okay.
Yeah. Our videos kind of evolve. Like we talk about one topic and then it leads into the next topic for the next week and into the next. And it flows very well. But then I also notice how there's these shifts kind of in the mood in the environment of what we're discussing.
Okay.
Like as at first it tended to be this heavy focus on wokeness, and we were kind of talking about censorship and how the woke crowd, was kind of in control, and we're kind of more of the minority voices who are being oppressed. And maybe we're not the minority, maybe we're the majority, but we're being silenced. But then we kind of gradually move towards the time where the election comes, and we see this shift starting to occur, and suddenly people are realizing that the anti-woke people, how do you want to call them? Not anti-woke, but the people that aren't so much, we question kind of the woke side of things.
Call it traditionalists or whatever.
We're actually more popular and more common than we think, and suddenly we see those people coming to power, and so you kind of see a shift.
Yeah.
And how we're talking about things. So suddenly now we're not the outside voice anymore. We're now suddenly
It's quite interesting how you move from being the outsiders to being probably the main act.
In the course of time that we started doing this video until now, the whole atmosphere has changed. It's
Drastically.
not drastically. It's not that the controversies and so forth are not out there still. They're still there. And it's not saying that it can't switch back at some point. But now we're at a point where people like us, our voices are given more favor, and we're given more opportunities to put kind of these traditional ideas out there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Okay, so
And I did put out, do you want to talk about a Nerves comment about the last, because we've been doing the last few digitally.
Yeah, so we had a couple of not so good quality videos. The content was probably the same as usual, but maybe the quality of the pictures and all that because of logistical challenges. But I know Robert commented about it. I might not have been so comfortable. Like I felt like maybe it's not necessary, but you had a comment from someone.
Yeah, so on the last video by the time you see this, it won't.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was probably a couple of videos ago.
2 videos back.
I put it out to where the video quality wasn't very good, and the sound quality wasn't best either. But I did it without the visual aspect of it because I didn't look good. But I still put in the audio, but I didn't like the audio. It sounded we still had some problems. So I almost did an apology at the beginning saying, well, this doesn't sound very good, but we think the content...
Almost? You didn't?
I did do kind of an apology. But then we got a comment from one of our subscribers saying, don't do that. Just put the stuff out there. We like what you're doing. You don't need You don't need to apologize, or you don't need to tell us that this is, not the best quality video. So
Yeah, but probably this one will be better quality.
this one would be better, yeah.
Visually,
Yes.
probably the best.
Yeah, because I got a new phone, the camera's better. So,
Yeah, so let's see how it
so
works.
yeah.
Anyhow, so our most recent video, we talked about politics in a way, how human beings are governing themselves. And we talked about democracy and the oligarchy,
Yeah.
monarchy, and all that. And we had an interesting comment from Awan Bill Walton, and he was commenting of his. I may not have it verbatim, but I can just recollect it. He said something about democracy being overemphasized, and it has led to growth of behaviors that are not really as beneficial, because just because people have made noise and they have a strong voice towards something doesn't make it right. And probably we've seen that with the LGBTQ people. They made noise, they got what they wanted, etc. So just because someone talks too much or like they have numbers doesn't really make them the right people. Doesn't mean that their agenda is correct. And there is a philosopher whom I've also forgotten, probably Aristotle, I don't know, before Christ, something like that. He was talking about democracy. He said democracy is not like per se something that we need, because he said at some point democracy will lead rise to to worse leadership or worse dictatorship than monarchies and oligarchs. And he said in this way, in that when the poor people in democracy, poor people will ask for equal rights with the rich, and they'll get it. Women will ask for men's rights, and they'll get them. Equal rights with men, and they'll get them. And then that may not be as bad, but then thieves will start asking for positions in government, and they'll get them. And at that point, when thieves are in the government, then the government can become thieves, and also the bad people will want positions in the government. When they get it, that's when now democracy has been compromised, in that we have bad people in leadership, and they will lead us in places of total dictatorships. And in that narrative, some of those things may seem off, especially by the people who are kind of inclusionist and that. But the point is that just because many people are talking about something or supporting a particular candidate doesn't necessarily mean that candidate is the right one. We have a trend in Uganda where we are voting comedians, we are voting musicians because they are popular, because they are funny, and we are giving them positions in parliament, giving them positions in ministerial positions. Because of democracy, these people can go there because they are popular among the youth, they make them laugh. But these are the people we are placing in strategic positions in the government to plan for us. What are they going to plan? They're just funny people. Just like we have, this may come off not right, but Ukraine voted a comedian.
Yeah, actually that's the very thing, the very example I was going to give, so I'm glad you went there. Yeah.
They went to a comedian, and we see the comedy now. It was so, it was so not nice what happened to him in the White House, etc. But so democracy can as well lead to dictatorship, in other words.
Which right now that's what Ukraine is.
Exactly.
They don't want to acknowledge it, but it is. Yeah.
Anyhow, so that's about the past. Moving on today we had planned that maybe we've talked too much about other things other than outside ourselves. And I'm a psychologist, and he's that one, meteorologist.
Meteorologist, science educator. But maybe, but we.
So maybe we talk about what we do and answer some questions, especially in the line of business that we do. And I know one of the ardent followers of ours keeps asking, talk about the effects of the psychological effects of the LGBTQ. He's always talking putting that comment there, and maybe we want to respond and talk about things, not exactly that what he was saying, but maybe we want to follow up and be like, okay, let's talk about what we do and receive questions around that areas, and then we maybe respond, and we have a more interactive session, but about ourselves and our professions. What do you think?
I think that's a good idea, because I think we've been talking a lot about topics that are exterior to us, what's going on around us. Maybe we want to focus in and give our subscribers maybe a chance to get to know us a little more. Maybe
Yeah.
we start with you this week. And of course that can tie in also to many of the things we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And then next week we can come back and, zero in on me and learn a little bit more about me and about my background.
Okay.
So you are a practicing cynical? I keep saying that.
Right.
Practicing clinical. I don't know why my mind just wants to say cynical.
Just a psychologist.
Yes, psychologist. So
Yeah.
you're a psychologist.
Yes.
So maybe tell us a little bit about what maybe caused you to get interested in this, what you did to kind of get where you are and where you're going.
Yeah. So it was kind of not planned for me to be a psychologist. There's a stage in our education system where you have to make a choice which profession to take, which career direction to take, and at that point I was still probably just populist. I wanted to do what everyone is doing, and I got a course at the university. It was a business course, so for some reason I was never motivated to do the business course, so I used to not really go to class. So most of the time I could volunteer in a particular school. I used to teach mathematics in a primary school. At that point I was not so strict about qualifications, so I could go to that school and volunteer and teach mathematics. And it was mathematics. I could teach upper primary, and mathematics was quite easy for me studying in school, so I could go and teach off head. So most of the time I wasn't in class, and of course I missed papers. I didn't do much. So at some point I was almost considering break. I also had family problems anyway along that time, because I lost my grandmother, and she was like my sole sponsor for everything.
Wow.
Basically she was like my guardian, and she used to stay in the UK, so she had died in the UK, and things were a bit hard financially, and they are now fighting for property, who is going to be the administrator of this property. So even the tuition wasn't coming clean. So I found myself disinterested in studies per se, depressed. I think that part of grief, there's a point where you get depressed. I was there and angry about many things as a normal human being. So it's not like it's unique to my experience. It's something that happens to everyone. So
some of the things we've talked about related to mental health and so forth, you've been there and kind of...
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it was a torrid period, turbulent, where I could not really focus on school. But then I knew I liked children, so I used to go and volunteer at a school, at a baby's home, where I could go wash the babies. I could go early in the morning at 8 a.m. and I would wake up the babies it's called Sanyu Babies Home. I think it's the oldest babies home in East Africa, probably Africa, because it has been there since 1920. So it's old, and so I used to go to that school, that baby's home, wake up the babies, shower them. They've pooped on the bed. I wash them, feed them, and prepare them for the day. We play games with them, then help with the dishes. I'll be there up to lunchtime. So after lunch, I would go to class. So I found more meaning being at the baby's home than being in class.
Yeah.
Then also this other opportunity came to volunteer and teach children in a particular school, mathematics, and I took it on. So I was dabbling as a volunteer in two different places, but where I would interact with children. So all my life I've liked children. Unfortunately, I'm yet to get my own. But so that part. So that's how I found no meaning in accounting, and I dropped out of it. I had a switch, and I talked to one of the deans of the school, and they advised me they had like an interrogation, per se, an interview, and they thought maybe psychology would do for you. And I liked the idea because it made sense. I would have some social meaning in the society, where I can have some social impact, societal impact, and help people who are probably I feel I'm a people person, so I feel like when I'm doing my profession, I'm more in my natural space. I don't feel like I'm working. So I think it was easy to convince me to do that course. So I just shot my shot, and here we are.
Can you give some examples of maybe some of the impact that you felt that you've had since you've entered into this profession? What sort of specific examples? What sort of specific impacts have you had?
Okay, so I've had a couple of impacts. First of all, with my immediate inner circle, people who I call my friends and my relatives, you find that even while some of them are way older than me or way younger than me, they know that they have someone in that field. So when someone is struggling, you get a random call from a relative you last heard from 7 years ago, and they need your help, and you're able to help, and you're able to refer them where they can get help if you cannot help, especially when they need psychiatric support. So at least that contact person for my intimate circles, people who are very close to me, and I'm able to impact them that way. And beyond that, I've been able to do awarenesses and help, because I think at the stage of psychiatry and psychology in our country, we are not at a stage of just taking treatment and getting support and reaching out there, because people barely even know that these services exist. They barely even appreciate them, basically. If you don't know they are there, then even when you know, you don't appreciate them. So we're at a level of awareness raising, basically, where we have to see the value for what these kind of services are for. So I've had a strong hand in that. I've been on a few campaigns where we're spreading awareness, and a few people have reached out after that and got support services, and things are better. I've had a few clients who have had marital challenges, enmeshed into addiction, especially alcohol, and I've been able to help at least one particular family to stand. And I feel like that's a big merit among others, and that's not for the people I see in rehab, because I see other people in rehabs. And I've been also in the refugee settlements where I've been supporting refugees. There's this one particular case where this girl came, and so she was so enraged that she had a panga. What a panga would look like a machete. Yeah. But panga is now what they use like to cut fruits and something like that. So she wanted to chop her mother into pieces, and you know Sudanese girls are really, really tall and strong, and they go for what they want. They're go getters. So she wanted she was hating on her mother and wanted to chop her mother into pieces and also commit suicide. So it was a very delicate case of aggression. So she came into the space where, like in the refugee settlement, there was a center where most of the offices were. So this child came, and people were trying to capture her. So she was running and shouting, and I don't know where I got the bravery to talk to her, but I
had a little help from above, I guess.
Probably from above, because I said, oh hey, can we talk? For some reason she like, what are you telling me? What do you want to say? And when she gave me that window, we were able to interact, and she had to put the panga down, and we got a chance to talk, and we took her. I got a psychiatrist to get some injection to cool her down. I don't know that I won't talk about medication because that's not my specialty, but they did that part, and she calmed down. Then she came for subsequent sessions within the next 4 days, and she was back to normal. And this case is so important to me, because up to now, probably 4 years later, I still receive phone calls from the mother, thanking me and telling me about how okay, I was almost saying her name. So this one, she's doing well. She's doing well. Oh my God, you saved our family, and it is so
lifetime of impact.
Yeah. So now that's something like I feel like, okay, you probably saved the future generation, because she's going to have children.
Beyond
children.
Yeah,
exactly.
Beyond the lifetime of impact.
Exactly. So among others, that is one case that I could say stands out among others. So
the third question that I have here is, when you think about your profession and you think about the topics that we've been talking about, we've been talking about all the different things we've been talking about over the last year and 2 months, the wokeness, the gender issues, the mental illness issues, we've talked about abortion and governments and democracy and all these different things that we've talked about. How do you see your profession entering into kind of the sort of things we're talking about, and how does it help you in dealing with or addressing the many issues that we've been talking about on these videos?
Maybe if I'm to rephrase what you said, you were asking about the questions that we've been covering, the topics we've been talking about, and how they interlock, or how they meet with mental health.
Yes, how do they meet with your profession of psychology?
Yeah, so for example, with politics, affects mental health, one way or the other. If you have a bad person at the top, prices are going to, increase, and people are going to lose jobs, and people are going to be arrested, and, police brutality. All those are traumatizing events or depressing events. They always lead to a spiral in mental health, like spike, mental illness spike or mental disorder spike. Because if a country is having high level rates of instability, obviously, there are going to be very many mental health cases, mental illness cases.
Right.
And that's why we have refugees anyway, because the wrong people are in power somewhere else, and people are fighting because of these different social topics, And when someone comes into power and they have an ideology that doesn't favor another group of people, you find that these people become, let's say, they be held at a ransom, or they become patronized, something like that, and they have to seek other refugees, and that's eventually we get refugees. And things like abortion, things like sexuality, when there's this ambiguity between societal norms, social norms, or culture and tradition, etc. When these two clash, eventually there's that ambivalence in someone's head. Yes, I know I'm gay per se, or yes, I know I'm supporting abortion, but my mother doesn't support it, or my priest doesn't support it, or my father. So already there is already a confrontation, or there's already a clash, or a conflict. And when there's conflict, we cannot say that people who do some of these leftist things like abortion, or who are into homosexuality and trans etc., that they are not empathic. So even them, they still feel for the people who don't believe in what they're doing. They still, for example, if someone's parents do not want what they're doing, but then they feel they want it, they will still feel that disconnect. And so there's the more reason that they could probably get depressed. They could probably have an anxiety problem, and etc. So there we go, mental health again. So these societal challenges will always create some tension in people, and when people are overwhelmed by the tension that comes with them, they will need mental health support. So how can a mental health person come in and help? And this is a subjective topic, because like I said some time back, my profession has been compromised by wokeness, because it's more woke than not. You have to be very compromising, you have to be very accepting, you have to be multicultural, all those things. Just accept people the way they are.
Multicultural is what do we mean
not
by
multicultural?
Multicultural.
I've forgotten the other word. Not multicultural, but someone who culture sensitivity. You have to be culturally sensitive, something like that.
Well, see, where I kind of think about having multiculturalism or respecting multiple cultures is not a bad thing, but I think that what oftentimes has happened nowadays is there's become such a sensitivity to it that it's actually become counter kind of multiculturalism. Like, for example, sometimes they'll talk about cultural appropriation. That if you take something, a certain hairstyle or a certain clothing style that's characteristic of one culture, and you use it, that you're appropriating or stealing that culture from them, rather than honoring the culture, which is what it should be. Like, I think, for example, braids. So there's this idea, like, if a white woman wears braids, sometimes in America what you'll see them being confronted by somebody who's black and saying, you shouldn't wear those braids. But
anyway, so you find that some of these social concepts, societal concepts or topics, they cause friction, like what you just said. And we need people who can be like in a place of impartiality and support people to actually cope with the daily changes of life. Because the world is moving at a very frantic pace that not everyone can keep up with how fast the world is moving. From an extreme leftist president to an extreme rightist president.
And what happened in the U.S., but what happens in the U.S. influences much of the world.
Yeah, so like not just one of the different things that have changed in a short time, but from extreme left to extreme right. That means people who have been comfortable with extreme left are going to be extremely uncomfortable when an extreme right person comes in,
Right.
and that leads rise to need for people who are in the middle ground who can still support these people to actually catch up. You know, it's like when Uganda, we moved from digital things to from analog to digitalization. People had to catch up, but that was more of a financial thing and a literacy thing. But we have to have means of how to catch up. So the world moves so fast, cultures are changing so fast, ever so fast, and we're not able to actually catch up sometimes on our own. So sometimes it overwhelms us, and when you're overwhelmed, I think that's when you can actually receive help to catch up.
All right. Do you have anything else maybe you want to talk about that hasn't been addressed through these questions before we wrap it up? Or just anything else specifically that comes to your mind that you really want to focus on?
So the other thing about mental health, the field of mental health, is that it is highly stigmatized. It's highly stigmatized that when someone has been to a rehabilitation center, they want to whisper it. They don't want anyone to know outside the people who already know. And they're so ashamed about getting this kind of support. So, especially the men, they don't want to know. They don't want anyone to know that they met a psychologist. They don't want to know. They don't want anyone to know that they're taking some sort of psychiatric medication, because the stigma is too high. So it's also another challenge which I think is international, but much more in countries like my own, because the stigma is very high here. People think when someone goes to a mental facility, they are mad per se, which is also another derogative term that we do not use in our field, because it's one of the labels that people have to struggle with almost all their life. It's very painful. You know, just because someone was depressed and they were suicidal, doesn't mean that they are mad. Doesn't mean that they will always be suicidal. They can get help and they get back on the right path and things are okay. So we still have a long climb to a place where we can address mental health just as we address physical health. Because when someone has cancer and they heal from cancer, they become a hero. People just they don't discriminate against them. People just actually be proud of them. I think if someone is struggling with addiction and they beat it, we should look at them in the same light. Because to me, addiction is almost like the cancer on our side of mental illness.
Kind of like cancer of the mind.
So I also have a poem about addiction cancer sometime. Maybe I'll read it sometime. But so basically, we have a very big gap to bridge around stigma in mental health, because much as we've accepted physical health, especially like sexually transmitted diseases or the STIs, people used to stigmatize them so much. Yes, the stigma is still there, but on a much reduced level, because people are having HIV and these tablets almost every day or every month, and it has been a bit normalized. People, they go out on social media and they declare that they're HIV positive, and people still like, I don't care, it's okay, we can move on, But now when someone says they're an addict, it's not so easy. When someone says you see me but I'm struggling with schizophrenia, people look at them like, no, this is a mad person. So so we need to reach a place where even people who are having mental challenges are not stigmatized, or they are not discriminated against or made to feel like they are half human. I feel that is a message that needs to be reiterated over and over again.
All right. So I guess that'll wrap it up for this week, Paul. And then what we can do is next week we can reverse this, and then you can ask me questions about my background, my profession, and we can save that for next time. So. All right.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
If you have
everybody.
any questions about my profession, you can always type them and maybe you can respond.
But it's good. We're back here in person. It's been a while since we've been in person, and so we're kind of still. You're moving back closer towards Entebbe, right? Now you've been way out Kampala, the other end of Kampala, right? And we used to, of course, as we started these videos, we used to live in the same neighborhood. And it was very easy for us to meet. Then you started going further and further out, and then we weren't able to meet in person, but we finally tried to come halfway in between. But I think you're actually moving closer now towards Entebbe. So this should be easier going forward, and for us to meet in person, because I think it looks fantastic with this great background here.
Sure.
And the new phone, the new camera. That's exciting.
Yeah.
So, all right.
All right. Hope to hear from us sooner.
Yeah. Bye for now.